Hey there. Welcome to IncrediCon, welcome to IncrediChat, and welcome to IncrediTrek. IncrediTrek is a show by fans for fans all about Star Trek. And I am your co-host, Captain Lee Starshine. I am captain of the USS Henry Hudson, which is an independent Star Trek fan club here in Poughkeepsie, New York. I'm broadcasting live from, actually, Arlington, which is part of Poughkeepsie, New York. And here's my co-host. Take it away, John.
Yeah, hi. My name is John. Lieutenant John Backus, Chief Engineer, USS Henry Hudson Trek Fan Club Independent, and I'm representing the New York City area of New York.
So what we're going to talk about today is cameo and guest stars in the Star Trek universe. As you know, the Star Trek universe is massive, between all the movies, the series, the cartoons, even the parodies we're going to talk about today. Once in a while, you look at the Star Trek's, you look at the screen on Star Trek and you see someone that you recognize or someone who became famous later on. We're not just talking about, for example, William Shatner, Captain Kirk. Of course, he became recognizable as Captain Kirk. I mean, you remember some of his other shows, right, John? William Shatner.
Oh, sure. I remember him in an episode of The Outer Limits. I remember him. That's going back far because that was black and white. I remember him in T.J. Hooker. He was in what was that? Boston Legal.
Yeah, started that, and he was the Priceline guy.
Oh, of course.
To a deal on travel.
So, do we have a link to give out that we could put in the chat maybe for anybody who wants to watch?
Wants to watch the show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they're actually already watching. So this is being streamed on both Facebook and on our on the IncrediCon YouTube channel. So. We wanted to thank IncrediCon, including Mike Lopez, for letting us broadcast tonight. This is actually our third episode. Our last two episodes were in summer last year, and we really appreciate him giving us some airtime tonight. So we have our technician tonight, Shy, and Shy is camera shy. She is off camera, and she is operating StreamYard that is providing our tech. And I think we need to. Are you ready, John, with to get the first slide going here?
Sure. Let's start off with this character by the name of Yelgren. He is the Vorta overseer working for the Dominion in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, The Magnificent Ferengi. Quark's mother, aka Moogie, has been captured by the Dominion, and Quark sets out to rescue her at the behest of the Grand Nagus. Yelgren is played with precision comedic timing by none other than the godfather of punk rock, Iggy Pop. Starting off with the band The Stooges in 1967, he later broke out on his own and was better known for his hits Lust for Life and I'm a Real Wild Child. And
he still looks great without.
Not bad for 74.
Looking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed that episode so much. He just had beautiful timing and deadpan delivery.
Yeah. And you don't know, was it because of writing? Or was it him? I think it was a little bit of both. He's got a personality. I've seen him in documentaries. He's got a personality that's just there, and he played himself. He really did. He just basically played this wacky person, and it worked perfectly for the character. Absolutely.
And you don't always know. Just because someone can sing and play guitar or whatever he plays doesn't mean he can act. And I didn't even know that was Iggy Pop until someone told me. So I really enjoyed that. Sometimes when they get all dressed up in the makeup, you can't tell who they are. But this next one coming up it was easy to tell, even though this character was wearing a quite large horn ridges. And other than that, he was just covered in muscles. This was the Star Trek Voyager episode, season 6, episode 15, in which the Norcadians forced 7 of 9, the lady human rescued from the Borg. They forced her to fight gladiator style against muscular opponents for the entertainment of people across the sector. And one match is with the Pandorian champion. This is the muscular chap. He outweighs 7 of 9 by at least 100%. And he is played by none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, famous award-winning wrestler and equally famous actor, starring in Tooth Fairy, Hercules, Moana as a voice of the cartoon, Baywatch movie, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. He averages at this time about 3 films per year and 1 TV appearance. And this guy, I mean, I don't think they could have cast anybody else, because he just, talk about an opponent for 7 of 9.
That's true. 7 of 9 being a former Borg collective member, still has implants in her, as the character is written. Still has implants in her, so she still has the strength of a Borg for the most part, and probably just as strong as Data. I've never been. I think that's just apocryphal, but I've never actually looked at any writings on it. So, but yeah, definitely a worthy opponent of a normal humanoid, which Dwayne Johnson as a person is not a normal humanoid, and neither was his character.
No, I was very impressed by his physique, and I actually, at the time, did not pick up on who it was, because I had not yet seen Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. I did later, after this show came out, some years later, I took my daughter to see to see Tooth Fairy. That was a big mistake, because she was 7 or so, and this was a very eye-opening film, because she found out that the Tooth Fairy wasn't real. And sorry, spoiler alert for anybody under age 10. She started to then quickly piece things together, being a very intelligent girl. And then she says, "Wait a minute. If the Tooth Fairy's not real, what about the Easter Bunny?" So I had to come up with explanations for these things. And then she goes, Santa Claus, you lied. I wish we had not gone, and I am not happy with The Rock Johnson.
Well, it wasn't his fault.
I think there should have been a warning, and there were some children in the back crying. The theater was packed. This was my good old days of theater, like the highlight of theater. And this was in Iowa, actually, where there is really not all that much to do anyway. So they, no offense, but the movie theater was packed on a hot day, I believe. And boy, that blew the lid on the whole childhood.
Well, it's got to happen sometime.
Thanks, Rob.
And then we learn, of course, about other falsities and fantasies, and we enjoy them. And it's called sci-fi, and especially Star Trek.
I guess.
Okay, shall we move on to the next? In the opening scene of season 6, final episode of The Next Generation, called Descent Part 1, Data is seen playing poker on the holodeck with who he calls 3 of history's greatest minds: Sir Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and the one and only Dr. Stephen Hawking, played by himself. To this date, Hawking is the only person to play himself in the Star Trek universe. That wasn't, what do they call it?
Time travel, flashback.
Flashbacks or like historical film.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not even sure what you're referencing, because I know at the time for sure he was the only one who played himself in Star Trek. Are you thinking of something that came up later? I mean, there's an awful lot of episodes and movies at this point.
No, but there's been times where they've shown, like, for example, in the original series, where they go to in the episode "City on the Edge of Forever" with Joan Collins,
Right.
where they're standing in front of the time portal.
Right.
It
The
shows
Guardian
historical. They show Hitler. They show
Sure.
a number of different not characters, but historical figures, played obviously by themselves. But it's archival footage.
Yeah, and I don't think we're not really going to count that. I mean, they weren't reading lines. They didn't even know they were going to be in Star Trek.
No.
That's totally different.
Hey, Hitler, you're going to be in Star Trek. What? What are you talking about?
I just even don't think that would even register as something important. No. Yeah, no. No. So let's not go there. Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, I think that I was so thrilled to see Stephen Hawking. I'm not sure if I at that time had read his book, A Brief History of Time. I think I had, but I actually missed out on Star Trek Next Generation for the most part because I was at college, and that's where I read A Brief History of Time. Easy read. John, do you want to tell the story about how that book was written?
Yes, that's a great story. I love that story.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to tell the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your turn.
Because of his inabilities, to actually write, type, because of his ailment, he got his secretary. I forget her name. Did we have a name?
No.
It doesn't matter. He got his secretary to do most of the writing via dictation. And the secretary was having a difficult time putting this to paper because he was speaking on his genius level, and she was not of that level, so she had a very hard time putting this to paper. And she explained to him, she said, you have to talk to me like I'm my level. I can't write what you're writing. I'm not going to be able to help you with this if you just don't basically, hate to use the word, but dumb it down to her level. So it ended up being written on an 8th to 10th grade level. And although it did still have, a lot of charts that were more higher level than that, the only formula that ever actually appears in the entire book is E equals MC squared. My mind's blanking right now, but we know who wrote that. Who wrote it?
Einstein.
Einstein, right? Yeah, Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
And that was the only formula that actually appears in the book. Now, the book was originally, from what I understand, written in the 80s, but then re-released in the 90s around the time of his appearance on the show as more of a graphical book, and was also released as a video CD-ROM at the time, with a lot of the graphics and, I believe, voiceovers by Hawking himself, which made it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, well, I think that book left a mark on me, and I actually recently bought a copy for my teenage daughter. So she showed an interest in the expanse of the whole universe. So I'm like, hey, now's a good time to bring this up.
It's also, it's funny, it's also available, I believe, it's also been made into a movie. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Hawking is played by Cumberbatch from the newer, I don't know, Star Trek
reboot 2009.
Yeah.
He played Khan.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I may have seen it. Yeah. So yeah, I probably saw that. It was more, I think, a biography. But anyway, yeah, I think he's a somebody to follow up on if you enjoy science and physics and so forth. So let's move on to that next character.
Yes, this guy. Okay. Appearing in the Voyager episode Think Tank, the character Kuros, which you see on your screen now, is the public face of the think tank and was one of a 5-member team of strange but brilliant minds that solved problems for clients. Everything from elimination of entire fleets to rescuing lost pets. They did it to exercise their minds and in exchange for bartering of their choosing. They held their line to that highest level of, let's say, getting rid of entire fleets. They would not go as far as destroying planets or destroying entire races. No genocide or anything.
So they had their limits, but their ethics were kind of shaky. Like,
yeah, they were almost. I would say that the entirety of them were probably on the verge of being Asperger's. You know, no care for anybody else, as long as they got what they wanted. Now, Kurz was selected as the mouthpiece for the group because I believe he was the only one who was able to. He was the only one that was able to speak, while the rest of them were more of telepaths, and they actually had to converse with each other through that. Through the levels of telepathy, because they couldn't converse any other way.
And I think there was a great big jellyfish in a tank.
Yes.
And somebody thought that was a pet, maybe lunch, but it was actually one of the brilliant scientists.
Yes.
And then they make an indecent proposal.
Yes. For what they were doing for Voyager, their barter and what they wanted was 7 of 9.
Yeah.
They wanted to add her to the collective minds because she had, her background with the Borg, which gave her a lot of tactical knowledge and a lot of knowledge of many races and how they could be helped and or eliminated, but mostly eliminated.
And Borgs are famously good at that one. Yes.
Oh, of course.
Especially subjugating, yes.
Now,
he looks familiar, though.
He does, and he should, because he was most notably known for his run as George Costanza on the award-winning sitcom Seinfeld, which had wrapped just a year earlier.
Yay, George. Hilarious. Comic timing. Everything he said on Seinfeld was perfectly done. And Jerry Seinfeld doesn't just pick people at random to be his co-stars. He had three co-stars. You know, that Julia Dreyfus went on to just be like one of the most award-winning. She plays the vice president on Veep. I mean, her father, was so famous. I mean, she got his genes. Jeez. So yeah, I'm floored that Voyager got him.
Yeah, even you mentioned Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I thought her what do you call her? Her sitcom, the New Adventures of Old Christine, I thought was absolutely hysterical. It was, if you've never seen it,
I have
Watch
not
it.
got that yet. Nope.
Oh, you gotta check that show out. It is absolutely hysterical.
Just hold this button down on my device and say it. There we go. It is at my fingertips at all times. Yep. See?
Right now, I got it right here.
Yep. Speak into the mic.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Now I want my shoe phone. That's the thing, is this is a very modern world. I want to just pick up my shoe and talk on my phone, because they promised that on Get Smart.
Yes, on Get Smart. And you know what? Now I'm going to have to look on Etsy to see if anybody's making one. Merry Christmas. You know ahead of time.
Yep. Well, I always send a gift to, the senior officers in my, in the USS Henry Hudson Star Trek Club. And last year, especially due to the pandemic, I usually give it to them in person at the holiday party. But last year, because of the pandemic, we didn't have the party. I had them make and mail out like a mug to everybody. Well, next year, watch for the shoe phone. It'll be in a box. But this time, don't get too paranoid, because one year I sent you a box, like a kind of a medium-sized box. And John, do you want to tell the audience what you did? I sent you like this random box, and it had like a gift, and I give everybody a coin every year, like a champion coin about the club and everything. And I don't know, maybe there's a T-shirt in there. I don't know.
I honestly don't remember. But my memory's horrible.
Yeah, well, you thought...
Well, for certain things.
You thought that maybe, since you didn't really recognize the address, the return address and stuff, you actually took it outside on the back patio with mittens from the kitchen,
Now I remember.
Gloves, and took it outside and carefully opened it at a distance, like with a knife on a stick, like holding it far away from you in case it was going to blow up. And it was just mugs, a T-shirt, and I don't know, a little challenge coin. Like, I'm not going to hurt you.
Oh yes, that was an exciting time. It was an exciting time.
So now when I have stuff shipped to your house, I have it like sent from the factory direct, so that there's no intermediary anymore. It's all just drop shipped. So I wanted to go on to somebody that's going to be pretty easy to recognize if you watched TV in the 70s, or if you watched movies in the 80s and 90s. This fellow right here. Now, he's easy to recognize, even though I believe this what must have been the first time that we saw the Klingons in their new ridges and the leathers and the long hair. Until this time, we saw them on The Trouble with Tribbles, and they looked a lot like us. Well, Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, I remember when that came out. My high school friends, I had a driver's license in a car, so my high school friends and I, right after school, drove out to the mall to see this movie. This was a big deal for us. This is the evil Klingon captain, who is almost over the top evil, almost comedically evil, but he does something terrible. Commander Kruge is the first Klingon we have. Oh yeah. Older viewers will know this actor from the most popular TV comedy series of the 1970s, Taxi. And let's see who this is. Christopher Lloyd played Reverend Jim on Taxi, and younger folk will remember him as Doc Brown in Back to the Future movies. So what did you think of this fella, John?
Fantastic character actor. While watching him on Taxi as a young adult, I remember very distinctly his character being so over the top. And I guess that's his forte. Christopher Lloyd's forte is being over the top. He was over the top in Taxi. He was over the top as Emmett Brown. He was over the top as Commander Kruge. And he is now regularly behind the camera as producer and director. So he is, he is a multi-talent. He definitely is a multi-talent. I recently watched him in a documentary about the rebuilding of the DeLorean that they used in Back to the Future to be given as a gift to
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox, yes.
Awesome. I'm actually surprised they kind of a little bit, seems they lost track of it. I mean, I would keep that thing in mint condition if I had my hand.
There were several hero cars, and one of them I know is at Universal Florida, but patrons of Universal Florida are allowed to get into the car. So pieces are missing and things have been damaged, and so that one is shot. That was just a photo car, wasn't meant to be driven.
Yeah.
And the DeLorean itself had its problems, but we won't even get into that.
You mean the part where you bang your head when you get out?
No, not as I'm talking about the mechanics of it. It had its problems right from the word go. As a aside, there was a part where they had a partial car that was used to take the shots of Michael J. Fox driving it, where it was only a partial car. There was no door on it. It was shot from his right, with the front of the car facing to the left, and he constantly was having difficulty shifting it as part of the acting.
Yeah.
And that was because the time circuit box was built right where the elbow should go while you're shifting the car. So he kind of had to reach over it to do it.
Design flaw. But was it also related to his, is it ALS that he has? No, Parkinson's.
Parkinson's. No, it had nothing to do with that. It just made it really ridiculously difficult to reach the shifter, and he looked absolutely absurd doing it. So they had to do a lot of those scenes over and over until it looked a little bit more natural.
Yeah, you can't exactly, give the character a shorter arm. I will actually admit that I'm double jointed, and there's a lot of disadvantages to this, but I don't know if you can see on here, but my arms are, anyway, long story, they're at a weird angle. I can't actually show you, but you get the idea. Oh, there we go. Anyway, they're at a weird angle. So that means if I ever have to be on crutches and things like that, I'm in trouble. But it has its advantages in that I can reach around corners. There.
Oh, stop. Don't do that.
Sorry, that was gross. Yeah, I can do it with, it's both. Oh my gosh. Everyone's different, and we must accept that all the varieties, there's all varieties of humanoids. I'm not an alien. I was born to my mother, who's human too. Okay. Yeah, it's just called double jointedness. And so I probably would have been just fine driving that DeLorean with the, see, I can reach around corners. Moving on, I have a question actually for you, John, because I see number 22 and I don't remember there being photographs for this. So are we with photos? No.
No, we ended up, that was the character we talked about removing.
Right on. So we need to tell vision.
I did put a series of links in the actual. See, I didn't know. I thought that's where she was. Chai was getting the.
I think we need to just maybe do this cold, Chai. Unless you can quickly drum up a couple of pictures. I just wonder if we need to just sort of skip this one for now and come back to it at the end. Okay.
Okay. What I'll do is the links that I grabbed for photos, I'll put into the chat so she can see them. How's that?
That sounds really good. So meanwhile, I'm going to go on to Lieutenant Savick. She's actually quite well known because there's several stories about what happened here. By the way, I can do a perfect Savick eyebrow. So this is Lieutenant Savick on the Wrath of Khan. She was the half Vulcan, half Romulan cadet and protege of Spock. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is considered to be, by many, the best Star Trek movie. The first Star Trek movie is considered to be the worst, by many. And they did a massive upgrade. I don't know how they pulled it off. This was actually my first date with an older gentleman. I was 14. And we sat in the, there was like a special booth that only had room for about a dozen seats. And we sat in the front, and there's plexiglass, and we were eating buttered popcorn. And at this, in one of the last scenes where Spock dies, and there is a plexiglass between him and Kirk, and he puts his hand up and says, "I shall always be your friend." Well, the guy I was on a date with, he put his buttered popcorn hand up on the plexiglass, and I'm like, this is a real Trekkie. Oh my. He could drive.
He's a keeper.
Yeah, he could keep up with me. Yeah, that was good. So anyway, she had a big enough role to actually be considered a co-star, and she was posted on the bridge, and she was the one always quoting regulations. So she was played by Kirstie Alley. However, and here she is, Kirstie Alley. You may recognize her from some other, many other productions. But she did not last in this role. So at the time, 1982, she was really quite unknown as an actress. The Wrath of Khan was her first film. And she went on to fame to co-star as the mom in the Look Who's Talking film trilogy. I'm sure you have all seen that series of 3 comedies about children and pets. She's also best known for her on television as Rebecca Howe on Cheers, one of the bar owner Sam's love interests. And she received both an Emmy and a Golden Globe Award for this. So she was a spokesperson for Jenny Craig, 2004 through 2007. She lost 75 pounds, quickly regained the weight, and soon after that starred in Showtime's Kirstie Alley, Fat Actress. So just a lot of drama, a lot going on. Drama with this. Now, for the Star Trek Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4, back up just a little bit there. Whoa, back. Oops. Okay, there's Kirstie. Whoa, stop. So this is, she was replaced by Robin Curtis in Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4. Why? There's conflicting accounts, but it seems the issue was money. We're not sure whether Kirstie Alley asked for too much money or the studio offered too little. It's unclear. However, at the time, Kirstie Alley was one of the best paid actresses on TV for playing Rebecca Howe on Cheers. So, you can make your own guess on that one. Robin Curtis, lovely lady. She actually lives in this region, the Hudson Valley area. She has gotten out of acting, and she is now working in real estate. But she's a Star Trek fan of the fans. She loves the fans. And I see her all the time at the local conventions, at the New York City conventions, Comic-Con, places like that. John, you ran into her at, and I did as well. I went to her table at her booth at, it was the 50th anniversary. They only did this once. Star Trek convention in New York City in the, like 5 years ago. Do you remember that?
Yes, I was at the Jacob Javits Center 5 years ago. Me and another member of the USS Henry Hudson, Jim.
Yep.
He happened to be. Yep. He was dressed as Pike, actually.
Oh, Pike. Oh, sorry, Pike.
As Pike. He was cosplaying as Pike. But what ended up happening was we just happened to run into her walking down the hallway, and she's like, I'm heading back from the bathroom. I got to get back to my table. We did, and Jim just blurted out. He's like, Robin Curtis, hi, how are you? He just started talking to her like he's known her all his life, and she allowed us to take some real quick selfies, which mine came out all fuzzy, so I don't even know if I have it anymore. I don't know about what happened to Jim's, but she was just the nicest person you could ever imagine. She had no airs about her. She was like a normal person, but you know, and it felt very normal to talk to her. It was wonderful to meet her. It was only a few moments, but it was enough.
I actually met her. I was only 17 or 18 years old. And at the time, the rule was, I was new to the area, and the rule was, sure, I can go down to New York City, but I have to be accompanied by someone who's at least 24 years old. So my dad took me down to New York City, and I got to talk to her. She signed my picture. This was back in the days when pictures were $1 and included, like, autographed pictures were $1 and included the picture. So she signed that for me, and I talked to her for a minute. I said, "Are you nervous about going on stage?" She said, "No, I do this all the time, and I'm an actress, so I'm not worried." I'm like, yeah, so lucky. She's so lovely. It's wonderful to know that she's around, and I follow her on Facebook and so forth, and just a lovely lady. The character of Saavik was going to appear in Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Now, I don't know if you recall, but there was a Vulcan female character who was a traitor. Kirstie Alley. Actually, maybe this was the part where Kirstie Alley was the highly paid actress on Cheers. Anyway, they could not get Kirstie Alley for the role, and it wouldn't make any sense anyway. Because they had already switched to Robin Curtis. They should have just stuck with her anyway, whatever. But they actually replaced the entire character, okay, with somebody named Valeris. Here we are. And she was played by Kim Cattrall, you may recall from Sex and the City. Now, I think the city, wasn't that our city, New York City?
New York City.
And actually, I only saw maybe one episode. How about you, John?
I have unfortunately seen the entire series and the movies.
Oh, and you're a fan?
No, I'm not so much a fan. I found it very interesting for, I don't know what reason, but I've watched the movies. I've seen a lot of the series. It was an interesting take on New York. It was beautiful to see New York in its glory, and you know, and to see just characters develop, which I think was the best part of it. There was very good character development in that show.
Well, yeah, I was in over my head with Sex and the City. When I came out or something, I was like pretty naive, and I was pretty overwhelmed by how casual they were. Like, hey, a new boy every night, yeah. And so I was not really like ready to hear that and see that kind of thing. Even just like 7 or 8 years ago, I played this game called Cards Against Humanity, and I was getting sunk. I was looking everything up in Wikipedia. I'm like, I've never heard of that. What is that? And people had to explain it. It was embarrassing. So I actually knuckled down and did a bunch of research on these things. Leonard Nimoy, though, apparently in his autobiography, didn't think that it was a good idea to take a popular character like Saavik and reestablish her as a villain, because I thought Saavik was quite awesome and even a role model for me. We had to give speeches in speech class in high school, and I dressed up as Saavik. She had a white uniform. I think she had been working out at the gym or something, but it had the little badge on. So I would call that a uniform. I dressed as in that, something like that, and gave a speech about her childhood, in growing up on Romulus as a wild child, which is in the book, Star Trek 2. So I think actually that would have been kind of heart-wrenching to see her turn into a bad guy for some reason. So I guess we're ready for the next one. Let's see what comes up. Okay. This one's for you, John.
That one's for me. Okay. Let me find my reference point.
Sarah Silverman. This is Rain Johnson. The character is Rain Johnson in number 6 as.
Yeah, I found it. Yes, the character Rain Robinson.
Oh, sorry.
appeared in the two-part Star Trek Voyager time travel episode to the year 1996 called Future's End. She was working for Henry Starling as a computer programmer and operator, searching for extraterrestrial life in the SETI program. This one is a twofer because Starling was played by Ed Begley Jr. of St. Elsewhere fame.
Everything.
Yeah, along with a lot of other things. And she was fresh off the set of Saturday Night Live. She later appeared in an episode of Seinfeld, Jag, Politically Incorrect, There's Something About Mary, Crank Yankers, her own shows and concerts, and sometimes controversial stand-up. She was known as a very controversial stand-up comedian, Sarah Silverman.
And still working today.
Yeah, and still working today, and a wonderful addition to this two-parter.
Yeah, she was impeccable, perfect, naive. She would get angry. She was in danger. It kept her head. Just good actors. Just very good acting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to that next one.
I believe is yours. Yes.
For me, and this is the guy's a little hard to recognize right now because he's wearing a science uniform in Star Trek Voyager. However, on close examination, we find out that he's actually a very important person. This was Star Trek Voyager, Season 2, Episode 20, Investigations. In the opening scenes, he is speaking with someone in the hallway, and then that person, they end their conversation, and he just walks. He doesn't actually say anything, so he just walks down the hall, and the conversation ends. This is actually back when he was a prince. Next slide. So this is Abdullah II, King of Jordan. In 1996, when he was in Voyager, he was a prince, and his coronation was in 1999. He is the 41st generation direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad and a member of the Hashemite dynasty, the royal family of Jordan, since 1921. So John told me that he was, he was is a huge Star Trek fan, and went on a tour of the studios, John, and they gave him a uniform.
Mm-hmm. They presented him with a uniform. He tried it on. It fit well, very little tailoring to be done. And they said, hey, how would you like to be on an episode? And they gave him a non-speaking role, got him on camera, and the rest is history. Honestly, for me, I'm not a student of history or politics at the time. I would have never known him from any other person. I wouldn't, as they say, I wouldn't have known him from Adam. But it's very interesting to see that there are so many fans that get backstage access because of their position of power or intelligence or. Even when we were talking about Stephen Hawking before, is something I didn't mention. When he was going through a tour of the set, he was going through engineering, and as he's passing the warp core, he says, "I'm working on that."
Yep. Yeah. I'm actually going to come out with a prototype for that, soon. Yeah, working on that. Well, let's move on then to one of my favorites. And this was a cameo. He only appeared briefly in 2 episodes. He managed to get himself into the engineering room of Star Trek Enterprise, which was out in the early 2000s. He was Ensign Rivers. And you can tell who it is. Next slide. This is Seth MacFarlane, a graduate of the Rhode Island Institute of Design. He is an animator, an actor, a writer, and so forth. He created Family Guy, American Dad, The Cleveland Show, and in 2017, Seth MacFarlane launched the 1-hour Star Trek-inspired dramedy series, The Orville, for Fox TV. They have, I believe, wrapped or are filming their 3rd season. Some
Second.
people,
Third?
nope, they finished their 2nd. They're on 3rd. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I saw them. I saw like one picture of them filming, and the actors did not have masks on, and the crew did. I think they might have created like a COVID bubble. That's how a lot of places are filming now, where they say, okay, everybody in, everybody out. Okay, so they go into quarantine. Like this was a little bit before the vaccine. Okay, everyone quarantines for X amount of time, and then you're in the production. You don't leave the production. Nobody comes into the production, etc. So they have like a bubble for production time. They may have done something like that. So anyway, Seth MacFarlane is such a huge Star Trek fan. He even did a Star Trek little fan film when he was 14 years old with the help of his dad and a friend. He had the uniforms, everything. I just love Star Trek parodies, and The Orville is maybe even a little bit better than some of the Star Treks.
Shh, don't say that. Not out loud.
Not out loud. Okay. I noticed though that the Star Trek franchise has become better at poking fun at itself. It came out with an entire cartoon series, Lower Decks. What did you think of that, John?
Lower Decks, I loved from the get-go. Then again, I love anything that's Star Trek. I don't try to. I'm not critical of any of their shows any farther than maybe that was a weak episode type of thing. But I see no reason whatsoever. I mean, we have so much volume. 55 years now. 11 major motion pictures. How many series? How many episodes? How many hours?
Lost track.
Lost track. Don't even bother to look anymore because it keeps on changing. Stuff is that you got to find something to like. Either that, or you're just in the wrong place, and you wouldn't be here with us right now.
Yeah. So, it's a big universe. And I actually watched, what was it called? Galaxy Quest. And I thought it was sci-fi comedy, but I did not realize it was a Star Trek parody until my Star Trek club watched it. And they pointed out all the Star Trek. And I realized, oh, it's an entire Star Trek parody. I'm like,
oh, absolutely. What was the commander's name? I forget.
Oh, well, it was played by Tim the Tool Guy.
Right, Commander Taggart. He was the quintessential overacting William Shatner.
Yep. And self-absorbed. Yes, I'm the star.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Worship me. Yes, hilarious. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide here. Somebody that we will all recognize. His role was very short, right at the end of Next Generation episode Cause and Effect. He played Boston's favorite radio psychiatrist. Next slide. Frasier was a sitcom that lasted for 11 seasons on NBC in the early 90s through the mid-2000s, and the character Fraser Crane was a spin-off from the TV shows. Cheers.
I believe he was on. Oh no, it was Rebecca. It was Savick that was still on Cheers when she did the Star Trek episode, I believe.
I can't quite recall the timing on all this.
He
was only a few minutes. He was seated in the captain's chair, surrounded by young crew members. He had a discussion with Captain Picard about a near collision between the two ships. Let's go back to the picture of the character here. He was dressed in a mauve monster uniform from Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. And his ship looks like the USS Reliant, Miranda class, which was decommissioned 8 decades ago. And for a true fan, right off the bat, there's something wrong. Like, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
He's calm, he's confident, even though Picard asks him a weird question. Do you know what year this is? Now, Picard doesn't want him to freak out. He wants to tell him in person, not in front of the crew. So they don't all have like a meltdown and start crying on camera. So, I think that Picard handled that scene very well.
Kind of a strange question, though. Do you know what year it is?
It's like,
did you just get into a car accident and had a head injury?
What year do you think it is? I'm sorry. Is it like January 3rd and you're still writing in your checkbook and you're still like writing the prior year in your checkbook? You still confused about that? So there was an anomaly. The cast of Frasier, there was some, I don't know exactly the context, but there's some kind of awards thing going on, and the cast of Frasier, except for Kelsey Grammer, appeared in a comedy sketch along with Kate Mulgrew, who played Captain Janeway from Star Trek. So Star Trek Voyager, and I don't really understand why Kelsey Grammer wasn't in there, because he's a massive, huge Star Trek fan, and that's probably why they gave him even just a small role like this, where he had, about 5 or 6 lines. He's highly recognizable. So I just want to go back to Shai. We're going to do Penny. Shai, are you able to put up any slides about Penny?
Yes. I got it. I got this one. This one I kind of threw together at the last minute, so please forgive us if it's a little bit on the rough side. Okay, this character that we're looking at here is the character Dobara, and she appeared once in the TNG episode Homeward, where she was part of a tribe being relocated without her knowledge and against the rules of the Federation to another planet by Worf's human foster brother, Nikolai Roshenko. Curiously, another twofer, played by another guest star, Paul Sorvino. Go to the next slide, it should be there. Yeah, it's Paul Sorvino as Nikolai Roshenko. And he's famously of Goodfellas and Law and Order. So you can go to the next slide. There he is as Paul from Law and Order. And what he looks like today is the next slide. That's his headshot. So let's go back to the original character. Now, later in DS9, the character Cassidy Yates, next slide, please. Next. There we go. Cassidy Yates, a freighter captain and love interest of Captain Ben Sisko, is introduced in the episode Family Business. She appeared in a total of 15 episodes. She eventually becomes Sisko's second wife and bore him a second child. And she was played by the character actor, next slide, Penny Johnson-Gerald, formerly having parts in as far back as T.J. Hooker with Shatner, on The Jeffersons, and scenes in The X-Files, and much more. She's currently filming, you told me, her 3rd season on the Star Trek parody show, The Orville, as the ship's physician, next slide, Dr. Claire Finn.
Beautiful job. Perfect comic timing, deadpan delivery. And also there's this little squishy guy who is always flirting with her, and she handles it well.
Yes. Voiced by Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, and he says, "You're a great mom to those 2 horrible boys. Come on, let me have dinner." So she has 2 children. There's no dad. It was artificial insemination or something like that. So she's awesome mom.
Awesome mom.
Yeah, I loved her on Deep Space Nine, especially as a character. I respected it because she was not perfect. Nobody on Deep Space Nine was perfect, and you're used to perfect. As we watched you and I saw the shows from the 1950s and 60s, like Leave It to Beaver, and what was that American one about? I don't know. There's like all these idyllic TV programs. And Kirstie Yates, she commits a crime. She goes to prison.
Mm-hmm.
She assisted with smuggling. She's not perfect.
She actually assisted with smuggling, I believe it was weapons to the Maquis.
Yeah.
Which is a big no-no in the Star Trek universe. Definitely a big no-no. Yeah, DS9 was definitely of that era of the second, I guess you could say, second wave of TV shows. DS9 was definitely the darkest of them. Even though Voyager was out in the Delta Quadrant and had to battle their way through a lot of difficulties, DS9 always had a deep dark side, and you never knew which side it was coming from, whether or not it was coming from the Bajoran Vedics or the Maquis, or you also had the character of Eddington, which was involved in DS9, and the Ferengi, who were known originally to be kind of
pretty shifty. I still don't quite trust them. Not quite. Maybe the nephew. Maybe Nog. Well,
Nog did become a Starfleet officer. So yeah, definitely Nog. Rom, he was not as stupid as he seemed, but he was a nice guy. And even Quark, as much as he was I thought he eventually became a trustworthy ally of the Federation. But we're talking about 3 characters out of the millions and billions of Ferengi who lived on Ferenginar that had nothing to do with the Federation, or wanted nothing to do with the Federation for that to take to another point. So it's like judging an entire race of beings based upon the negative connotations of their type, and it would make it very difficult to say, okay, all Ferengi are safe to speak to, or all Ferengi are trustworthy, simply because of 3 of millions of characters.
Yeah. I think that over time, I've binged Deep Space Nine 6 times, and I think that over time they did become allies, and the behavior improved. More ethical behavior.
Sure.
So that improved, but I still really, I think fundamentally they're still out for themselves.
Of course. Rules of acquisitions be damned.
Well, I think that actually is we've got to wrap up our show for tonight. We're actually right at the 1 hour mark, and I wanted to thank.
I think we did that timed pretty well.
Yeah. So I wanted to thank Cheyenne for being our technician tonight. She is a student. She is a recent graduate of communications major, and this is one of the things that she has studied and would like to do in the future. Additionally, we have thank you, John, Chief Engineer of the USS Henry Hudson, for being on tonight.
You're very welcome. And thank you for your wonderful work on the write-ups and and just being here and just being my captain, oh captain, my captain.
Thank you. You're welcome. I also wanted to thank IncredChat, and Mike Lopez for giving us this chance to be on tonight. And I don't know if this is public knowledge yet, just so that you're aware that in the future we are planning some live events around here in the Poughkeepsie area. That's all I can say for now. Yeah, everything's embargoed right now, but keep your eyes peeled for announcements. So our website is usshenryhudson.org. We have in-person events now. They're, however, limited to members, and we are not recruiting right now. We're just working with the membership we have due to pandemic and vaccination requirements and so forth. In the future, we may go back to public events. We used to have a game night every month that was public and so forth, but everything had to be pulled back because of the pandemic, and now we're slowly going back to in-person at this point with members only, and maybe 1 or 2 allies. Additionally, don't forget to like this channel, the IncrediCon channel, and also go to IncrediConHV.com, where that is actually a website that I maintain because I actually make websites for a living, and so that's one of the ones that I do. I'm a volunteer for IncrediCon. And like us on Facebook and on Instagram. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.